Izuku Midoriya was a kid that loved heroes just like anyone else. Though at a young age, he would learn that he was quirkless and was told by a lot of people that he should give up his dreams. And he really felt that. He felt that people were right, that he should give up his dreams. Though fortunate for him, he had someone in his life that cared a lot more than most did. See, Izuku had a grandfather who absolutely adored him. His grandfather was a pro hero in the past named Atomic. And his grandfather, whenever he got too old for the hero business, he ended up going into support, creating support items for heroes and trying to figure out how to still be a asset to society. See, his grandfather had a quirk that allowed him to mess with and reconfigure DNA, even extract it. And whenever Izuku was told that he was quirkless, he had told his grandfather that he was quirkless and that he was being told by a bunch of kids in his class, aside from his best friend Bakugo, that he'll never amount to anything and that he'll never be a hero, that he'd be better off giving up on his dreams. But his grandfather told him, no, you have such a big heart, Izuku. You have every opportunity, every chance in the book to become a pro hero. I believe in you, and so does your mother. And in this version, Inko does still believe in Izuku having a bright future, maybe not in heroics, but in general, right? Just like a bright future because of how incredibly smart he is. And another thing that I'll say is that, Izuku, as a young kid, he had a fascination with outer space. He would spend most nights with his grandfather looking through telescopes, looking at the stars, looking at planets, and Izuku especially loved it whenever his grandfather would spin whimsical tales of there being aliens out there in outer space. Whimsical tales of creatures flying in unidentified flying objects, going from galaxy to galaxy, helping others, just like a hero. And as Izuku got a little bit older and so on and so forth, he began to lose a little bit of hope in being a hero. And his grandfather, whenever he was working on one of his experiments, right, he was thinking to himself, what can I do to help Izuku? And then he thought about this old idea that he had in his head whenever he first started to create support items. And he started to really dive deep into his work, trying to re-spark the old idea in his head, that old dream of his, of wanting to create the world's greatest support item. Now, something of note of Izuku's grandfather is that he is a genius among geniuses. They called him the greatest scientist in the geneticist industry. He was one of the top tier geneticists in the world, even. Because of his quirk giving him the ability to splice things, right? It made him so well known and so well revered that he had managed to make a huge name for himself. Everyone knew who he was. Everyone like knew of him, and they knew of his achievements in the field. And one of his greatest inventions, or greatest projects that he started a long time ago and that he slowly worked on over time, was based around the concept of splicing DNA, and not just DNA, but the quirk gene DNA. He's worked on the idea of splicing quirk DNA with other people for the longest time. And after realizing that his grandson had been born without one, he started to redouble and even triple his efforts to create this revolutionary weapon of sorts. And after all the blood, sweat, and tears and effort that went into this project, his grandfather had finally accomplished it. Had finally succeeded after so long to create the support item for his grandson. But he wanted to ask his grandson to make sure that this is what he wanted, that this is the life that he wants 100% to choose. And after putting the item into a container, he goes and he talks to his daughter first, and he tells her, "Inko, sweetheart, I have a way to give Izuku the ability to be a hero. And I want to make his dreams come true. You know as well as I do that that boy deserves to be a hero more than most of us. He has a heart so big and so compassionate for others, for the idea of helping people, that it would be a waste to squander that desire, that need to help. It would be a waste. Because people who believe in genuine heroism, they've become so far and few between. This generation has forgotten what it means to put your life on the line to be a hero. They're only doing it for the fame and for the money, and I think Izuku should be the next shining example of what it truly means to be a hero. I think he'd make an amazing hero, sweetheart. Basically, after telling her this, he asks her if she'll back him up, right? Like, if she will help support Izuku's growth into a true hero. And, you know, Inko, after hearing her father tell her that he can give Izuku a power and make his dreams come true, she's excited, ecstatic even. She can't believe what she's hearing. But she's slightly worried because if they go down this route, then her poor Izuku may be put into life-threatening danger. And she doesn't want that for her baby. She wants him to be safe. But she also knows that by keeping him safe, she'll be destroying his dreams and destroying his future as a hero, or as the thing that he's wanted to be since he was able to articulate what a hero was. And she doesn't want to be the reason that her baby gives up on everything he ever believed in. So she decides that yes, she will support her baby, and that she will back her father's decision to give him this technology. Izuku's grandfather is relieved and elated to hear that his daughter is willing to let Izuku have this opportunity. Now, Izuku's grandfather, he, along with Inko, start to walk to Izuku's room. At this point, Izuku is about maybe 8 years old. And when his grandfather reaches the room, he gently knocks on the door, and he hears Izuku tell him that he can come in, right? And when he enters the room, Izuku is sitting on his bed just taking notes, which, mind you, are notes of heroes like he is done in like the original version, right? But his grandfather, he's holding this container that has Izuku's one and only chance at being a hero behind him, right? And he looks at Izuku and tells him, "Izuku, my boy, I have a potential proposal for you that I think you might find rather intriguing." And Izuku is kind of confused. He's like, "Grandpa, why are you talking in riddles?" And Izuku's grandfather starts to laugh a little bit after being called out for talking in riddles, right? And whenever his grandfather walks over to him, he sits down on the bed next to him holding this package, right? Or this container that has all this stuff in it. And he tells Izuku that he has worked on a project for the longest time. This project just so happens to be a very special type of support item, one that will give Izuku the potential ability to become one of the greatest heroes in all of history. And when Izuku heard that part, he's like, "What? Become one of the greatest heroes? How so?" And Izuku's grandfather tells him that, or basically says, "So Izuku, you remember how I have the ability to manipulate DNA, right? Or more accurately, I'm able to manipulate the biological nature inside of humans." And Izuku says, "Yeah, I know." Well, his grandfather explains, "Well, lad, I have been working on a project that will revolutionize the industry, basically. But it's a one-time offer. I am only able to create one of these. So I wanted to give you what is basically the only version of this item, and I want you to have my magnum opus, if you will, or my masterpiece. But I won't tell you what it does unless you tell me that you want it. Because this has the potential to basically make you one of the strongest individuals in our world, but it carries the risk of possibly making you one of the most wanted people in all of the world as well, because of how dangerous this item is. And Izuku, he's kind of worried, if you will, about what this item in general can do. And like, after hearing his grandfather kind of go in detail in simplest term on how dangerous this thing is, he finds himself wondering whether or not that this is a good idea, right? And his grandfather assures him that it won't kill him, it's just that it's something that's incredibly powerful. And people may try to take it from him because they want said power. The only problem is that if Izuku puts this item on, he can never take it off. Secondarily to that is the fact that if they try to take it off, then it will be useless to them because it will only be bonded to his DNA, specifically. Izuku after hearing this, he thinks to himself, well, at least I have the exclusivity of having my own piece of support equipment. And his grandfather says, well, Izuku, do you want this gift of mine, my masterpiece, my proudest achievement, or would you rather not have it? And Izuku, he jumps up and says, I want it, please, I'll take it. And his grandfather laughs a little bit and says, I knew you'd take the offer. And as he's opening up this capsule, this container, Izuku peers in and he sees a watch. What this watch does is unknown to Izuku. But his grandfather tells him, basically this watch has the power to alter and manipulate your DNA on a cellular level, making you able to take on the appearance of anything you want, technically. Because its primary goal is to splice your DNA with a Quark's DNA and give you the ability to use different superpowers, but it also alters your form. Izuku asks exactly how this works, right? And his grandfather tells him that once the watch is strapped to his wrist, it will give him the incredible ability to turn into aliens, if you will. Izuku, after hearing the part about turning into an alien, he's like, oh, I'm on board all the way now. Because, as I have prefaced before, Izuku loves aliens because of his grandfather. Legitimately, his grandfather is the person who fostered Izuku's love of the extraterrestrial. But aside from that is the fact that Izuku's grandfather is also someone he holds very dear, and he wouldn't want to make his grandfather feel bad or reject something so precious from his grandfather. It's his life's work after all, and he wouldn't feel right not taking this opportunity that his grandfather wants to give to him. So Izuku has essentially mustered up as much courage as he could to reach out towards the watch. And the watch in question, after a couple of weird beeping moments where it was making some very strange noises, it came to life and latched onto Izuku's wrist, giving him this horrible feeling coming through his arm. It burned. It was scary. It hurt a lot. And Izuku, he started to collapse to the floor, and his grandfather, he rushed to him, grabbed him, and held him close, saying, Izuku, it's fine. It's trying to copy your DNA. It's trying to basically fuse with you on a cellular level, and it will pass momentarily. Just grit your teeth and bear it for a couple more seconds. And Izuku, he was gritting his teeth so hard that he thought that they'd break. And then, just as suddenly as the pain started, it ended. Izuku felt relief wash over him. Relief of the pain, relief from all of this horrible feeling that was inside of his body, of being ripped apart and all the like. Izuku thought, I do not want to go through that kind of pain ever again. And, as he's sitting there, assessing his situation and all, he thinks to himself, do I really, really want to deal with this? Is it truly worth it? And then a second thought comes to him. I did want to be a superhero, and This is the easiest way for me to become said superhero. But as it stands, Izuku was kind of miffed at the fact that he was essentially put in such a painful position. Like, that hurts a lot. And he, for one, does not want to go through said pain like that again. For a while. Like a long, long while. But his grandfather also explained to him that he's getting old. That he doesn't have very long to live, essentially. That after a while, he's going to kick the bucket, croak, if you will, and he wanted to make sure that Izuku had something to remember him by, right? But as it stands, if Izuku was to lose his grandfather, which would be incredibly horrific and tragic for him, like, Izuku would at least have, like, mementos that his grandfather wanted to give to him. His grandfather kind of explains that he's going to keep these items, these, like, little special items, like, under lock and key for a little while until Izuku is old enough to receive said items from his grandfather. And that if and when the time comes for Izuku to get said gifts, he can always come back to the workshop where his grandfather did most of his work and get these items from the basement, where his grandfather keeps his most precious of items and his greatest works. That the containers, right, they're made from a special alloy that he created by splicing quarks, right? So they will only ever respond to Izuku and him. And that he basically articulates to Izuku that he cares very deeply for his grandson, and that when he's gone, he wants Izuku to have these mementos of him to remember him by, and to keep close to him, that way that whenever he goes off and becomes a great hero, that he'll always feel like he has a piece of his grandfather with him, or that his grandfather is always watching over him, even whenever he's in the stickiest of situations or the deadliest of fights. And Izuku, he appreciates the sentiment. He appreciates that his grandpa loves him that much and cares so deeply for him. But his grandfather tells him that he is going to take him to a training facility that he's allowed to be in because of, like, from his hero days, right? That he's going to train Izuku how to use these aliens, if you will, right? And his mother Izuku's mother tells him goodbye, and both Izuku and his grandfather, they go to this training facility, right? Where Izuku's grandfather is met by a receptionist who is dumbstruck to see Izuku's grandfather because, like I said, they know who he is. Because he was the previous pro-hero Atomic and now one of the world's greatest geneticists. And also one of the greatest support item creators, because, like, the thing that made him the top tier is the fact that whenever he created a support item, he created it to go along with or match the person's quirk factor and or their DNA structure, so it was 110% able to amplify their powers in general. But Izuku's grandfather tells this receptionist that he would like to use the training facility to help his grandson train, right? And this receptionist, she's like, "Yes, sir, Miss." and she basically leads them to a gated off area that is not able to be destroyed, that has like a built-in kind of hologram system that creates like physical constructs that feel real. And basically Izuku's grandfather tells Izuku, okay boy, what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the watch, right? Izuku does. Then he tells Izuku to push a little green button on the bottom of the watch, and Izuku does. And up pops the center of the watch, and then Izuku's grandfather tells him that what he's going to do is he's going to scroll through the wheel of creatures, and he's going to select one that he thinks looks nice, right? One, because he has preloaded 10 aliens for Izuku to use, but he's not going to tell them what they do. He wants Izuku to figure that out for himself, right? And Izuku, he's ecstatic. He's electric. He's on fire, basically, like to start this. So he starts scrolling through the wheel real fast, trying to see what he can find. Finally, Izuku lands on a alien that looks to have some kind of fire-ish plume outline on its its slot, right? And he asks his grandfather how does he actually select the alien he wants, and he tells him, well boy, what you're going to do is you're going to take your hand and you're going to slap the watch down and to send the center into your like inward, that way it can inject you with the splicing material. And Izuku's like, okay, and he hits the watch real hard, and it causes the watch to activate, which then leads to Izuku turning into Heat Blast. And the transformation, he can feel as his body is being torn apart on a molecular level and shifting, but it doesn't hurt. And after the transformation is over, Izuku, he's looking at himself, he's like, oh my god, I'm on fire, I'm on fire, I'm on fire! Wait a minute. I'm on fire? Sweet! And after marveling at his physique and his body, he begins to start, enjoying himself, right? And his grandfather, after hearing a boisterous laugh, having a boisterous laugh come out of him, he tells his grandson, Izuku, calm down. There's no need for you to get yourself into such a tizzy. Just relax. You have 9 other aliens that you have to practice with, Izuku. But Izuku was just too excited. He couldn't contain himself. I mean, he was basically given the golden ticket to being what he has always dreamed of being. And he wasn't going to miss this opportunity to live it up, right? But as it stands, Izuku wanted to basically make the most of everything, right? And he asked his grandfather, well, exactly what can this thing do other than be on fire? His grandfather explains, well, you see, that creature right there specifically is able to shoot fire and suck fire in, and I'm pretty sure that, you can infer from there, right? And Izuku, he's kind of enjoying it, right? He's like, okay. Now, I'm going to preface, Izuku does not have a timer. Basically, if he hits the watch symbol, which is always going to be on his chest, he's able to transform himself back and instantly choose a different alien to change into, basically. And from there, Izuku manages to change into a different alien, and this time it's one of my personal favorites, Diamond Head. And once he turns into Diamond Head, he's like, oh wow, I wasn't expecting to turn into an alien that had so many was made of crystals. He asked his grandfather exactly how did he get these samples, and Izuku like like walking over to his grandfather to hear the answer. His grandfather told him, well, let's just say that whenever I was spending some time with some of my old hero buddies, I may or may not have like asked them for blood samples for like some research, right? Telling them that I'd make them a support item with this DNA because they were begging me to make them something nice, right? Well, I may have taken an extra vial off of them and implemented it into your watch. And Izuku's like, Grandpa, that's kind of really screwed up. And his grandfather tells him, well, it's their fault for giving me free access to their blood. I mean, what am I supposed to do? My sweet grandbaby was in need of a quirk, and I so graciously found a way. I scoured and I found every opportunity to give you the quirk you have always wanted. I see a lot of potential in you, Izuku. But remember, this is not a toy. This is a responsibility. This is something that you're going to have to basically have for the rest of your life because it won't come off. And let's just say that if your arm gets cut off, like in order to get this watch, the watch has a self-destruct sequence inside of it if and when you lose an arm. And I'm pretty sure that you'd rather not lose your arm, so it would be best if you trained with all of your aliens until you were able to have it down to a science. Like, you need to prepare yourself because being a hero isn't easy. It's not fun and games. It's not jokes and comedy. It is a serious business, and I think that the hero system could really use a genuine hero instead of all these fakers that want to play celebrity all the time. But Izuku, like, he takes this to heart, and he really does want to be the kind of hero that his grandfather was in his prime, and to be the kind of hero that his grandfather describes, right? But as far as he knows, it's going to take a lot of time. And he asks his grandfather, well, is there anything else about the watch that I should know before I continue to practice? And he tells him, well, the watch has a function in it that allows it to take DNA in from other people with different quirk factors and essentially turn it into new alien variants for you to use. Now, what the alien does not completely correlate to the person. You could get multiple aliens if the person's quirk works in a unique way from most, right? Like, he explains to Izuku, like, how the whole, like, how it all works. Like, the whole process of getting powers versus anything else, right? And Izuku, after kind of absorbing this like a sponge, he looks at his grandfather with like a impressive look of determination, and he tells his grandfather that he is going to train with this watch until he becomes powerful enough to become an amazing hero, and that no one is going to stop him from being the kind of hero that he always dreamed of being. And this makes his grandfather really happy to hear because, well, it was sweet and it was like so cute to think about, right? Because when you have a grandbaby like that, right, there ain't nothing cuter than hearing them talk about their dreams. Or I would figure. But, with that being said, like, Izuku spends basically the rest of his day just, like, learning about this quirk, or this watch, right, which his grandfather has told him is called the omnitrix, or omnitrix for short, and basically learning everything he can and like about this watch, trying to like learn as much as he can, as fast as he can, with as much proficiency as he can. Though I think I'm going to leave this story here. I hope you all enjoyed, and don't forget,